Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Nick from TenacityCloud.com with my co-host Jason, and you're listening to the Cloud Cost Optimization Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into commitment-based discounts and what they mean from the various providers. We're going to keep this at a high level because, over the course of the show, we'll take apart committed use discount strategies, go into some of the nuance of selecting different plans or how to, use different types of plans together to maximize your benefit or to mitigate your risk, depending on the sort of environment that you're running. But today, we're going to keep it at kind of a high-level educational, really helping those who may be new to this or are using maybe only one type of vehicle, help understand what the benefits are of the different type of vehicles. So, Jason, I guess to dive into the topic kind of at a high level, where do you see, across not just our customer base, but also, and when they come to us and start using our platform, but when we do consulting work, what is the most common type of, commitment-based discount strategy you're seeing out of people, really in AWS, Azure, Google, et cetera?
Yeah. Azure makes it simple because they only offer reserved instances, but or reservation-based commitments. But I think what we see for the most part, AWS offers savings plans and reserved instances. Savings plans are pretty, widely used because they're pretty easy to subscribe to. It's a brilliant sales tactic from AWS, right? Because it's, you're just saying, you're looking at your past usage, you're going to use this much. Hey, if you commit to spending this much on this set of infrastructure, we'll give you a discount on it. And it's the discount they want to give you, right? It's just enough to make you happy and just enough to keep you satisfied and continuing to use AWS. So it's great. You save a little bit of money, and it's very easy to procure those, right? But you can unlock a higher level of savings potential by a strategy that incorporates both, or, if your usage patterns align with the commitment of usage-based versus spend-based.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand, is that there are a number of different strategies. There are tools out there that will help in sort of the acquisition or analyzing, what type of plan to use. Many of them really only adopt one philosophy or one strategy around, what sort of plan or what sort of strategy you should adopt, especially in the second generation of cloud cost optimization tools. But there are a number of them you can adopt based on your usage pattern, your needs, the way your environment's configured. It's important to kind of think through, also, your tolerance for risk and your tolerance for upfront capital costs.
Yep.
Payments that can really save a lot of money over the long run. So it's important to kind of understand the nuances, the in and outs. And like I said, we'll cover off on that in throughout the life of this podcast, hopefully for the many years to come here. But I want to dive into sort of just at a high level. What are the differences in these plans? Because I think this is a place where people get confused when we start talking about commitment-based discounts. And I think the first place to start is, what's the difference between, say, reserved instances savings plans, or more generically, if you're looking across all of the cloud providers, this would be including Google, because they have the same kind of concept here as AWS, is there are committed use types of discounts where I'm committing to a specific type of resource use. And there's committed spend type of discount programs where I'm committing to spend a certain amount of money. And so it's really kind of approaching this commitment or commitment-based discount from two different sides. So, and I think, Jason, as you mentioned, we see a lot of folks who opt for kind of the easy road of, I'm just going to commit for kind of a low-level savings plan that I know is going to work. I'm going to get a little discount, and I'm just basically going to keep renewing that annually. I might adjust it if it's making a recommendation that I should do a little more. And I think that's kind of that's an easy path, right? That's an easy way to get
That's the easy button.
To get a small discount.
Yeah.
But there are advantages to thinking about some other tactics that can potentially have a deeper type of discount. Have you seen customers leveraging before they're on platform or as we engage with them. Have you seen it be common that customers are using deep discount strategies typically? And if so, kind of what are they doing to do that?
The more sophisticated ones are, and they're using, where applicable, using a combination of spend and usage base. And so, I think one of the things most important to remember is that one, pretty much all of these vehicles, and maybe not all of them, but most of them are focused, if not all of them are focused on compute spend only, right? So, with savings plans, you're looking at SageMaker, EC2, Lambda, and Fargate potentially what they cover, but just the compute portion of that. So you're not getting covered on EBS volumes and things like those are all on demand. And those are, you're going to be, you're going to take a look at what your compute spend is across, say, those different types of services and make and it'll take a look at what your spend is. We'll give you some recommendations and then you'll commit to that amount of spend to use that amount of stuff. And you get, a discount on those services. It's debatable how much you get. I think some will say 38%, maybe. I don't, it just depends on what you choose and how much your usage is. And then if you're looking at reserved instances, that's going to be where you're reserving usage based, right? So you're going to be procuring that. There's a handful of services that are covered, but most of what people use them for are for compute instances, because that is where by far the most of your money goes in the cloud, right? Like 65% of AWS's revenue is compute based. So reservations, unlike savings plans, where you're committing to using a specific thing, maybe even in a specific thing in a specific region for a specific period of time. So, as an example, I'm going to use this type, 10 of these types EC2 instances for the next year with some sort of pattern of usage that I can predict that's going to be there. And so you're committing on that usage in that particular instance class, in that particular region in a lot of cases for a certain period of time. So that's why it's just easier, because spend is, just kind of generic and it just kind of goes into a whole bucket. And with reserved instances, you have your databases, you have your VMs or your EC2 instances, and you have some other ancillary services. So understanding what you should buy based on your usage pattern is pretty difficult to do. Or can be difficult to do. And then understanding what combination of those things makes the most sense with committing to a spending discount as well is how you unlock and achieve the highest savings possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's some important nuance in, I think you just covered off on a bunch of it. There's important nuance around flexibility within these plans as well. When we think in terms of savings plans, you have a little more flexibility, right? Because your spend can apply to, in a EC2 instance savings plan, your spend can apply across that instance family. So if you're using M5s and you have a bunch of, M5 larges, speaking specifically about AWS here, right? It can apply to that. But if you stop using some of those and you want to use some M5 extra larges, well, that spend commitment will apply to those as well. So, it stays within the family. When you look at an actual compute savings plan, well, then it gets even more flexible. You don't have to pick a family. It actually can extend outside of that compute spend can go across, more buckets in the environment. But the downside to, or the risk in savings plans, and why you have to be careful in calculating what your spend is actually going to be and predicting it, looking ahead, is that you can't get out of it. Once you're in the contract, once you're in the 1 year or 3 year contract, you're in it. There's no selling it, right? There's no reducing it. And so
there's no selling it. There's no exchanging it. What I think Azure calls it exchanging. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're committed for that entire period of time. So you have to be pretty confident about what your spend is going to be for the next 12 months.
Yep. And so when we look at reserved instances, and there's two types of reserved instance plans inside of AWS, broadly standard and convertible. Standard reserved instance plans in AWS are the most restrictive in that you have to select the family and the size, among a few other things. But that's the important factors right here is you have to select, M5, and I want to run M5 larges. I'm going to run 5 of them. And so you're going to commit to that plan and commit to that use. But with standard RIs, they are actually sellable on the AWS RI marketplace. Mm-hmm. So there is the ability to get out of them and recoup some of those upfront costs in the RI marketplace, which also means that you can go buy shorter term, shorter duration reserved instance plans on the RI marketplace. So that becomes an opportunity as well, especially if you have a need where you foresee like, hey, I'm going to need a certain set of instances only for the next 6 months or for this special project, and I just want to buy a plan that gets me through that. Well, there you go. There's a way to do that. So there's actually kind of hidden flexibility inside of that kind of strict structure. And then there's the convertible side. The convertible RIs, a little less discount. Anything that's a little more flexible is a little less discount. So convertible RIs and compute savings plans have a lower discount level. But convertible RIs, you can, as long as you stay within the family, you can actually convert those. You can say, well, I'm going to commit to 5 M5 larges, but now I don't want to use this anymore. As long as you commit to using something that is equal to or greater cost, you can convert that RI and get the discount. So there is some power in there. You can't sell convertibles, but the nice thing about a plan but they are convertible. Yeah. So the nice thing about using them is that if you're fairly certain on kind of your environment's still growing and you're going to continue to leverage instances in sort of in a certain family, M5 is a good example there. Then you can have comfort around acquiring a convertible plan, at least at a low yield, get yourself some type of discount, and depending on the level of risk you're willing to take on, up your commitment and actually drive some pretty steep discounts if you're willing to pay upfront, if you're willing to commit over a longer period of time. So that's sort of a high level. I haven't covered. We haven't dove into really the nuance of all the things you have to select and all the opportunities and all the risks and all the kind of benefits of the various types of plans. And of course, we're really deep in AWS. So yeah, we know that really, really well. And we'll cover off on all the providers and what's going on inside of each of them. But I think, this is a topic that's going to be ongoing, because I think this is a topic where, we see certainly in our professional lives, a need for more education, more understanding of how to build and develop a really solid, cloud spending strategy and a cloud commitment-based discount strategy around it. So, Jason, any parting thoughts before we close out the show?
None today.
All right, man. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Tune in next time for even more deep dive into cloud spending and cloud cost optimization. For more information, hit us up, tenacitycloud.com, tenacity.ai, or you can find us both out on LinkedIn. We're always willing to connect, have a chat, willing to dive into any of these topics, and we'll always give you a little bit of our time. So that's it. Thanks, folks. See you next time.